Today, DD India team is now in Institute of World Literature at Slovakian Academy of Sciences, and we are joined by Institute's director, Robert Gaffrick, who has very recently produced a major work translating 10 major Upanishads into Slovak language. And the work was celebrated in the monthly broadcast of our Prime Minister, Man Ki Baat itself. So let's go straight into the work itself. And Professor, can you mention a little more introduction into your latest work?
So last year, my translations of the Upanishads appeared. It's the first ever translation of these texts into the Slovak language. It's a translation of 10 principal Upanishads, and maybe the most unique feature of this translation is that it follows the interpretation of Sri Shankaracharya.
So how long did your work take, this latest work?
Actually, it took me 5 years to produce the book.
And you must have done it directly from the Sanskrit version?
Yes, exactly.
So in that way, how did your fascination with Sanskrit begin?
My fascination with Sanskrit and Indian culture began when I was a teenager. As a teenager, I was interested in the world, read a lot, and I also came across Indian books, Sanskrit literature, and this fascinated me, and I understood that if I want to really understand the culture, I have to learn the language as well.
Is there a tradition, a very strong tradition of Indian studies in Slovakia, or what's the status right now in the Republic of Slovakia?
At the moment, there are actually very few people who are into Indian studies, although it's also because Slovakia is a small country. Yes. It's a country of just 5.5 million people. We don't, at the moment, we don't have a department of Indian studies or something like that. But Indian studies are pursued within other departments, like, for example, Department of Religious Studies at the Comenius University in Bratislava. But one can say that the interest in Indian culture and Indian languages has a long tradition in Slovakia. It began in the 19th century, actually, and here in Bratislava in the year 1831, even a Sanskrit grammar was published. It was published in the Latin language.
Okay.
Written by Stefan Tamasko.
So, definitely that's a new information to me after all. So, Sanskrit is not a new entrant into Slovakian studies at all. So, and especially while dealing with your latest work, Upanishad, what do you think the translation of Upanishad can provide to the Slovakian people? Or rather, when a work of Indian literature and its tradition gets a new life in a new language, what can it teach? What can it talk to the people here?
Of course, the Upanishads are quite difficult texts. And my intention was to present Upanishads as philosophical texts as well. It's also given by the interpretation I chose, which is the interpretation of Sri Shankaracharya. So I personally think that, and this is how it is also perceived nowadays, that this kind of books, this kind of literature really belongs to the whole world, so to say. Some people mention also Upanishads in the discourse about world literature. It's now considered a kind of text which belongs to world literature. So, and of course, every culture, even small culture like Slovak culture, wants to have these treasures, so to say, of the world in their own language.
Yes.
So therefore, I was thinking definitely it's important that we also have this text in the Slovak language. And what I was thinking about was actually how to present these texts. Shall I present them as texts which are historically very important but don't have anything to say nowadays? Or shall I present them as philosophical texts which can speak across centuries to anybody in the world?
The European studies into Sanskrit and Indian culture was earlier framed in an ontological perspective or in a rather colonial framework earlier. But as you have already dealt your major academic works in a post-colonial framework as well, so how do you think that the Sanskrit studies or the Indian studies have changed over time?
Definitely, in the past year, one can see reorientation in the academic study of India in the West because of the post-colonial paradigm, apparently. So I definitely see that more scholars in the West are open to the Indian perspective as well. And my translation of the Upanishads is also something which would like to contribute to this presentation of an Indian perspective of these texts in the West. But we should also not forget that the so-called Orientalist scholarship has produced a lot of very important knowledge, especially knowledge concerning the history of the texts.
Exactly. So the history is already written, and probably the contemporary relevance of the subject will be interpreted by the contemporary scholars like you. And it was we had a great conversation, Professor. And just concluding my conversation, when was the last time you visited India, and how did it feel?
Last time I visited India in July and August last year, and I always like coming to India. I try to come regularly every year, and I like it there. It's my second home, so to say.
Oh, yes. So that was the word from him for Professor Robert Gaffrick. India will always be his second home. And with this note, we are concluding this conversation from Bratislava, Slovakian Academy of Sciences. With me, Pramod Negi as camera person. This is Ajay Joy.